I stepped into the country club's grand foyer and saw Tyler standing by a ribbon-tied SUV, its dealership tag still glinting under the entry lights. When my parents called his name, he accepted the keys with a beam so wide it crinkled his eyes, proof in the shiny ribbon and fresh dealership sticker that the Jeep was his, not just a family rumor. Later, I found myself clutching a crisp envelope at the head of the table. I tore it open and discovered a single scratch-off ticket, its silver field untouched. Cousins nearby erupted in laughter, their eyes flicking between my face and that tiny card. I rubbed the ticket's surface until it wore thin, the hollow foil residue still on my fingers, evidence of their prank and my quiet disappointment. After the dinner, Dad cornered me by the buffet and murmured, "You're older, you know how to manage on your own." I nodded and tucked the crumpled ticket into my pocket. That whispered justification, caught in the hushed tones of his voice as servers passed by, was proof they saw me as self-sufficient rather than celebrated. A few hours later, I sat in my studio apartment, peeling open a paycheck stub stamped with my restaurant's name. Beneath the totals, my hourly wage and the night's tip pool were clear reminders that every dollar came from my own back-breaking shifts. I placed the stub next to the scratch-off, the contrast between the tidy print and the crumpled ticket, showing what I truly brought to the table. That evening, I scrolled through Instagram and found Tyler's post, the Jeep parked on a gravel driveway, afternoon sun glinting off its chrome accents. His caption read, "Earned a 3 times like a mantra." I tapped into the tagged list. My name wasn't there. The blank space, proof he'd forgotten to include me in his triumph, felt heavier than any empty seat at the dinner. I opened my laptop to check my class portal and saw the banner welcoming me to the next module in my IT certification, an online dashboard lined with completed quizzes and upcoming assignments. Next to that, my rent receipt peeked from my inbox, the landlord's confirmation stamp assuring that I'd covered every month without assistance. Those digital confirmations were proof I was building my future piece by piece, even when my family didn't notice. Pulling the Jeep's dealership tag from my coat pocket and the scratch-off ticket from my wallet, I placed them side by side on my desk. The stub of my paycheck and the screenshot of Tyler's Instagram lay below, each item bearing its own stamp of authenticity, barcodes, embossed seals, and notification timestamps. Together, they formed a mosaic of my reality, a life shaped by my own hands, not theirs. They handed Tyler the keys and gave me a ticket, because that's how they saw us. But in the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by the evidence of my own efforts, I finally understood the truth. The only validation I needed was the proof I carried with me every day. I sat at my kitchen counter and peeled the silver coating from the scratch-off until the bright letters beneath spelled out a fortune. The ticket's holographic lottery logo still gleamed in the morning light, and the clerk's signature stamped on the back shone faintly through the plastic sleeve. I'd slipped it into proof the win was genuine, not a daydream. That afternoon, I emailed the incorporation paperwork for Elmsworth Holdings LLC to the state office. When the PDF returned in my inbox, it carried the Secretary of State's embossed seal and a small watermark on every page. I printed the certificate onto heavyweight paper. The raised seal on that certificate was proof I now owned a blind trust. At my attorney's downtown office, I watched him draft our engagement letter on his firm's letterhead, the header reading Douglas and Partners, Sports and Entertainment Law. His sharp signature at the bottom, and the 3-page outline of confidentiality clauses, confirmed he'd handle my affairs without naming me. The next morning, I visited a small lottery office in another state. I handed over my trust documents and the original ticket. The clerk counted out my form, stamped it with the commission's official ink pad, and slid me a sealed envelope containing my claim check. The envelope bore the commission's return address, and the raised ink of its seal proof I'd collected every penny without a fanfare. Back home, I powered down my smartphone and logged on to each social account one last time. I clicked through the deactivation screens until my profiles vanished, leaving only blank login pages. I took a photo of that empty page, white fields, and the prompt create account proof I'd erased my digital presence. Later that day, I stopped at a corner convenience store and bought the cheapest flip phone they had. The cashier's printed receipt listed only the model and cash, beneath the store's faded logo. That crumpled slip in my wallet was proof I'd cut ties completely. My inbox pinged. It was an encrypted attachment from my attorney titled, "Next Steps." When I opened it, The PDF displayed bullet points on anonymity laws and a bold warning. Notify no one of these arrangements. His digital signature block at the end, complete with firm contact details, was proof of our pact. That evening, my new phone buzzed with a text labeled, "Mom." Her message read, "Tyler's Jeep needs ceramic coating. If you'd like to contribute, let me know." I captured a screenshot, Mom's contact icon next to her words, and saved it to my secure folder. That image was proof they carried on as if nothing had changed. I lined these artifacts on my coffee table, the holographic ticket in its sleeve, the LLC certificate, the stamped claim envelope, the photo of blank social media logins, the cheap phone receipt, the attorney's PDF with his signature, and Mom's text screenshot. Each bore its own mark of authenticity: seals, watermarks, signatures, headers that confirmed the truth of every step. Holding them together, I realized this new life was both real and irrevocable, built on evidence as solid as paper and pixels. I kept my crisp chef's jacket hanging in the corner, while I spent evenings buried in a stack of tech pitch decks. One night I read an email from those 3 ex-coders. "Thank you for your partnership," with a PDF attachment showing my name listed as investor on their company's stock ledger. Opening that document, I saw my initials beside their startup name and the notary stamp at the bottom, proof I'd quietly become a silent partner. A few months later, another email arrived from a government procurement officer. The subject line read "Award Notification," and inside was a letter on official letterhead, congratulating the small team on winning a major contract. The letter bore the agency's seal pressed into the paper. I printed it and tucked it into my filing cabinet, proof that my faith in their code had landed them real work beyond our tiny circle. Meanwhile, I logged into my banking app one evening and discovered several cleared payments titled Educational Loan and Medical Biller. Each line showed the name of the institution and a memo reading "Account closed." I smiled at the screen. Those entries, and the final zero balance, were proof I had erased every lingering debt without mentioning it to anyone back home. The next week, I slipped my apron over my arm and handed it to the restaurant's general manager. She peered over the counter at my final paycheck stub, the numbers neatly printed, and the signature at the bottom confirming my last shift. That stub, folded and placed in my drawer, was proof I'd left my old life and my daily grind by choice, not circumstance. Under the cover of night, I visited the county property office and quietly signed paperwork to acquire the very dealership where Tyler had driven off in his gifted SUV. When the clerk pushed the notary's stamped deed across the desk, I held the crisp pages against the overhead light. The dealership's logo and my shell company's name were embossed on every page, proof I now controlled the discount account he'd always bragged about. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Grandma. Her name popped up beside a heart emoji, and the text simply said, "Thank you for taking care of the house taxes." I tapped back a smiley face, then pulled up the county tax portal on my laptop. On screen, I saw her street address, and a status reading "Paid in full." The portal's header and the green stamp icon next to "No outstanding liens" were proof I'd cleared her debt without her ever knowing who'd done it. I gathered these artifacts on my coffee table: the stock ledger with my name, the sealed contract letter, the zero balance loan entries, the final paycheck stub, the notary stamped dealership deed, and Grandma's grateful text beside the tax portal screenshot. Each bore its own official mark, stamps, logos, signatures that confirmed every action was real and deliberate. In the hush of my apartment, surrounded by these proofs, I felt the weight of both lives, the cook they believed me to be, and the hidden architect building something far larger, just beyond their view. I hear Tyler's voice crackle through the line as he admits, "I clipped the curb too fast in Miami." Moments later, a message pings on my phone, a photo of his Jeep's bumper hanging loose, chrome bent inward, tumbled gravel at the wheel. The image's metadata shows it came straight from his camera roll, geo-tagged near the shoreline. Next, an attached repair estimate breaks down parts and labor costs under his name, the auto shop's logo stamped at the top, proof his recklessness left a real dent. A day later, Dad's message shows up as a saved voicemail on my screen. I press play and hear him clear his throat before saying, "You were always more responsible." Tyler's still finding his way. In the app, I swipe to view the call details. Dad's contact icon, the length of the recording, and the exact time it arrived. Proof their insistence that I pick up his slack persisted unabated. That evening, my phone buzzes with a tearful voicemail from Mom. Through her sobs I catch, "We didn't think you'd be this cold," followed by the hush of her shoulders shaking. The file's waveform pulses on my phone, and I tap the transcript to see her exact words overlaid on the screen. It's undeniable evidence. She expected me to bail Tyler out once more. Curious, I log into the hiring portal for Meridian Solutions, a startup I secretly back. Under new applicants, Tyler's name appears with a discrete folder icon labeled Internal Referral. I click in and see his resume alongside other candidates, and a small note from HR flagged Family Connection. The highlighted tag in that internal remark, visible only because I own the company, are proof he tried to lean on our name rather than earn his spot. That night, I craft a response in my anonymous business email. "Thank you for applying. We're seeking candidates who build their own path. At this time, we won't proceed with your application." I attach the company's official job description PDF, complete with Meridian's logo and signature block left blank. When the sent confirmation appears, I take a screenshot showing the subject line, my anonymous sender address, and the timestamp, proof the rejection reached him without fanfare. On my coffee table, I gather these proofs: the Jeep photo with its geotag, the auto shop estimate stamped with their logo, Dad's voicemail file complete with call details, Mom's tier-marked transcript, the portal screenshot with Family Connection, and the email screenshot confirming delivery. Each item bears its own mark of authenticity: map pins, shop headers, app icons, portal labels, and email metadata demonstrating these events weren't imagined but deliberately recorded. Holding them together, I see the clear line between my brother's entitlement and the boundaries I now enforce. Their surprise won't erase these truths. In fact, these pieces of evidence are all I need to prove this new chapter has begun. I sat at the head of the polished wood table as my mother cleared her throat, calling everyone's attention back to the question of Tyler's future. I placed my tablet flat in front of her, the screen already lit on the transfers page. In neat columns, each entry showed Elmsworth Holdings wiring funds to Jackson's Bakery, and the memo line read Community Support. Beside the ledger, an email printed from the bakery owner expressed relief after her ovens broke down, describing how those deposits kept her doors open, proof that those transfers were real, not imagined generosity. I tapped the screen once, and the table shifted to an invoice from St. Mark's Church. The header bore the parish's ornate crest, and below, roof restoration was stamped next to a detailed cost breakdown. A pastor's note was scribbled in ink along the margin: "Bless you, our secret benefactor." The rich texture of the embossed seal, and the sideways flourish of his handwriting convinced everyone this gift had covered every cracked shingle, not just quiet charity. Next, a spreadsheet appeared showing rows of grant awards to Emily's after-school program. In each beneficiary column, her name glowed, while the donor field was blank, until I clicked the hidden drop-down to reveal Elmsworth Trust. A thumbnail image beside it captured children's bright faces in a sunny classroom, the mismatched desks and colorful murals evidence of her nonprofit's impact. The hush that fell over the room was proof I'd helped her succeed without fanfare. My mother's face tightened, and she slammed her fist on the table, the silverware rattling like a startled bird. "You lied to us," she accused, eyes damp with hurt. The sudden clatter underscored her betrayal, and I could see the tremor in her voice was real, not dramatized. I leaned forward, my voice steady as I replied, "No, you never asked who I was becoming." Around me, shoulders slumped as they realized every dinner I'd attended carried that quiet purpose. Every smile masked deliberate choice. Reaching into my pocket, I produced a single cream-colored envelope, sealed with dark wax. When I peeled it open, I pulled out a letterhead, paper stamped with the seal of Elmsworth Trust, and read aloud its promise: a college fund gifted to Tyler's future child, release only upon proof of graduation and certification. There was no flashy car, no lump sum, just a commitment tied to merit. Laying the letter beside my untouched plate of turkey, the soft rustle of the paper was proof this final gesture rested on his own achievement, not my endless bailouts. I stood, draped my coat over my arm, and walked away. Behind me I heard Aunt Clara exhale, the scrape of chairs and whispered questions rising, but I did not look back. Outside, the crisp autumn air greeted me like a promise. I had shown them every piece of evidence: transaction memos, invoices, spreadsheets, handwritten notes, and sealed letters, and with that proof in hand, I finally reclaimed my boundaries and my peace. I turned the heavy brass key in the lock of my weathered cabin and pushed open the door, the scent of salt and cedar greeting me like an old friend. On the wall hung the framed lease agreement from the Mendocino County Recorder's office, its raised seal and clerk's signature a quiet testament to the distance I'd put between myself and the past. Each morning, I sank into an armchair by the window, the chipped armrest, polished smooth by long afternoons, lost in the pages of a dog-eared classic I'd scavenged from the town library, proof that in this new life, curiosity guided me more than obligation ever did. A few times a week, I walked up the gravel path to the Community Tech Center, where I taught HTML and basic coding to retirees. In my email folder, I still treasured the heartfelt messages from students like Mrs. Alvarez, who wrote of building her first personal website at age 70, and Mr. Chen, whose animated GIF filled my inbox with surprise. Those saved emails carried the sender's name and timestamp proof that my contributions here were genuine and appreciated. On each birthday, I slid an envelope into the mailbox for my parents, enclosing a fresh, unmarked scratch ticket alongside a simple note, "Thinking of you." At the bottom of their driveway, their mail slot bore fresh scratches, and the dated return address label. I'd affixed proof they received these annual reminders of possibility, even if they never scratched the surface. One afternoon, an envelope arrived, addressed in Tyler's familiar scrawl. The first few I opened to find his frustration spilling out. Accusations that I'd left him to fend for himself, his words jagged on the page. 1 year later, his tone shifted. His letter simply read, "I get it now," and bore no return address stamp. The change in ink and his neat handwriting convinced me that across the miles he had come to understand boundaries as I had. Behind the scenes, I funneled support into culinary scholarships under the name Joe's Diner Fund. Each transfer in my online banking history showed account closed beside the local college's bursar office, and the attached PDF confirmation displayed the program's logo and the student's grateful acceptance email. Perf I was giving back without fanfare, honoring the man who first taught me respect for work. When I was invited to speak at a nonprofit conference, the embossed invitation from the organizers sat in my inbox under events. On stage, I opened with the line, "They handed me a lottery ticket because they thought I had no future," and saw nods echo through the room. Recording playback later showed the audience leaning forward, their applause genuine proof that sharing my story resonated. Each evening, I closed my laptop and wandered down to the bluff where waves crashed against the rocks. My reflection in the dark glass showed a person who'd reclaimed power through quiet actions, framed lease, teaching certificates, thank you emails, annual scratch tickets, Tyler's transformed words, scholarship confirmations, and the packed conference room. These tangible proofs, gathered like driftwood trophies, reminded me that freedom was final when it was earned one deliberate step at a time.